Hello and welcome to Exchange Server 2016 recipient types. So in this lesson we are going to learn what are the different recipient types that we have in Exchange Server, and then we will be configuring all these recipient types one by one, and then we will be testing it. The first one that we have is Mailbox. So Mailbox is one of the recipient types, and then there are two other subcategories, or there are two other um, mailboxes types that we have, and the first one is user mailbox. So user mailbox is something which is assigned to an individual user in your Exchange organization. It generally contains your messages, your calendar items, your contacts, your documents, and your crucial business data. So whenever you create a user mailbox for a user, what happens is that whenever someone sends and receives emails, all those emails goes to your user mailbox. So it goes to user's mailbox, and then if you schedule something like in a calendar, and if you create tasks, if you create contacts, all of them are stored in your user mailbox. And then the second one that we have is linked mailbox. We will not be configuring it because linked mailbox is something which is different than user mailbox. It does the same feature. The feature is same, but it is linked. How? A linked user is a user whose mailbox is usually resides in different forests. For example, elmgeotech.local, and then there is another company or another organization. So we have like a trust configured between each other. Like we are two different domains, and then we are in two different forests. For example, mjo.local and global.com. So what are we trying to do in here is we are trying to link a user mailbox with these two forests. So what is going to happen is that a user whose e whose mailbox is linked is usually going to be is going to reside in a different forest rather than the forest in which user resides. So it's going to be in different forest, and then you will be accessing it. So you're linking it whenever you have two different forests. The second recipient type that we have groups. Everyone knows what is groups, but in Exchange Server, groups is in three types. So the first one is distribution group. Distribution group is something where you are enabling a group to send and receive emails. For example, um, let's take an example of finance department. So in finance department, you have like 15 different users. What are you trying to do in here is you're trying to make sure that whenever you send an email to finance, the email should go to all members of finance. So now what can you do in here is you can either enter the email addresses of each individual manually, or you can create a distribution group in Exchange Server and then add um, all members to the finance distribution group. So now what you will do is you will send an email to a single group, and then it is going to distribute it amongst those finance people that you have in your distribution group. So the distribution group is something like a distribution group is actually a enabled Active Directory distribution group object which can be used only for message distribution to a group of recipients. So you're distributing messages, you're distributing emails to group of people, group of recipients, just using one single group. So, for example, finance at elmgeotech.local. So now anyone who is member of finance group will receive email messages. So the other one that we have is security group. Security group is different than distribution group, and security group is something that is actually used to configure um, permissions. For example, whenever you are creating a security group, you are not able to send and receive emails with that group. Security group is not used to send and receive emails. You can use security group to configure permissions. For example, permissions with folders. So when you are trying to give permission to multiple people, for example, 100 people to a specific folder, what you can do is you can create a security group and add all those people member of that group. So now when you add that security group into a folder and give it permission, all those people who are member of that group will have permission to that folder. So one other thing that I want to tell you is there is mail enabled security group. So whenever you mail enable a security group, it is going to be Active Directory Universal Security Group object, which can be used to allocate access permission to resources in Active Directory, and may also be used for to distribute messages. So whenever you mail enable security group, what are you doing in here is you are enabling that group to be able to set permissions as well as send and receive emails. The last one that we have is dynamic distribution group. Dynamic distribution group is really great way of just adding members automatically. So you are adding members based on filters and conditions. For example, um, um, Jeff, Paris, and John. They are the people who work for example, legal department. So when you right click on their account and go to the properties, you can add their organization name or you can add their department name in their properties in the user settings. So what you can do in here is you can actually tell, create a dynamic distribution group and then define filters and conditions saying that anyone who got the department name as legal added to this distribution group. So dynamic distribution group is adding members automatically based on conditions and filters that you define. You are not manually adding them to the group. It is adding it by itself automatically by using the properties or conditions that you are configuring. So we will be just configuring that practically and you will see how it is working and I will be practically testing it for you. So a dynamic distribution group which uses recipient filters and such conditions to drive and orient its membership at the time messages are being sent. So this is one of the explanation for dynamic distribution group. The other one that we have is resources, and this is one of the recipient types, and it is also in two types. One is room mailbox and one is equipment mailbox. So room mailbox is another great recipient type that we have, and room mailbox is something which is assigned to a meeting location, like conference room, training room. Room mailbox might be included as resources in addressing requests, offering a simple and efficient way of organizing meetings of your users. So let's say, let me just give you an example. One of the good examples for the room mailbox is these days, when you just go to the office, you might have like conference room, you might have like meeting rooms. So most of the people in your organization, they always want to have meeting. So what these days organizations are doing before they just go and enter a room, a meeting room, they are reserving that room. And how they are reserving it? They're reserving it through a room mailbox. So once they configure room mailbox, and then you just send an email to room mailbox when scheduling a meeting in your Outlook. When you just create a schedule, you create a meeting, it sends an email to room mailbox, and then room mailbox checks, like the Exchange server checks for the schedules. If the room is not busy, it sends an email again, accepted or approved. So this is room mailbox. And then equipment mailbox. Equipment mailbox is another recipient type, which is also great. So what you can do with equipment mailbox is you can simply reserve equipment. For example, I need a projector, I need a laptop. What you can do is you can send an email, projector at local. This time I just need it. When scheduling a meeting, you will just add equipment mailbox as part of your meeting. And then if that equipment or that laptop or that projector is not reserved, or it's not like already in use, it's going to accept, and then the other person who will try to reserve it will know that you have already reserved it. So this is equipment mailbox. And then the other one is shared mailbox. Shared mailbox is a mailbox which is not primarily concerned with a single user and is usually configured to permit access for multiple users. So as the name implies, a shared mailbox is a mailbox that can be used by multiple users, by multiple people in your organization. So most departments, they use shared mailbox. So this is one of the explanation for shared mailbox. Uh, I hope you have learned something, and I'll see you in next lecture.